Welcome to the Mentor Podcast, where the most highly motivated entrepreneurs come to get their weekly dose of financial stability with host Ron LeGrand, as well as other nationally recognized thought leaders who will teach you how to get, grow, and protect your wealth.
Well, hello, everybody. This is Ron LeGrand with another episode of the Mentor Podcast, dedicated to helping you make more money, make it quicker, and keep it longer, and retire rich. And I have a great guest today who can help you do all of those things. His name is Ted Thomas, and he is the world's leading expert on tax liens and tax deed certificates. And frankly, he's been doing that longer than I've been alive. How are you doing, Ted?
I'm doing great. Well, it has been a long time, more than 30 years. I know you've been around more than 30 years, that's for sure.
Yeah. Most people wouldn't go back as far as we do aren't around anymore.
That's right. Yeah. So they kept working, they'd be okay, but they didn't keep working. Yeah.
All right. So listen, we've got listeners from all walks of life on here, and some of them, of course, don't know what a tax lien is or a tax deed certificate or how it applies to them. So let's start with that, if we may.
Okay. Well, let's start with the basics, which is just what you said. A tax certificate is really something simple. It's a piece of paper that a local government is going to issue. And it all comes about because every property that's privately owned in the United States has a tax, and that's called a property tax. So it could be a commercial building, it could be a home, it could be anything that people use for real estate, and it's going to have some kind of tax. Even a boat slip will have a tax on it. So those taxes, people sometimes forget, some people sometimes refuse, sometimes people forget because they own property in so many places, and they lose the property because they don't pay the tax on it. So a tax lien certificate is issued in about half of the states. It's a very benevolent state that issues a tax certificate. That simply means that the person didn't pay their tax, so they sell a certificate to a person like any one of our listeners. They can buy that certificate, and when they do, they'll get a guaranteed rate of return because the government locally guarantees that they'll get return for that. So the other half of the states, they sell what's called a tax deed, and that means that state is not quite so benevolent. And what they do is they confiscate or seize the property if people don't pay. So the easy comparison for all this is most of us have a MasterCard or a Visa card in our pocket. And what happens if you pay late, we have to pay high interest. Well, that's what the local governments do. They just tell people, if you didn't pay your tax, you're going to have to pay a high interest. And that's what a tax certificate would be. Now, there's a lot of those certificates. For example, Florida, in the past 3 years, they issued 1 million tax certificates. That means 1 million property owners did not pay their tax. So a listener, or Ron or myself, we can go out and buy a certificate, and those certificates pay us up to 18% return on that investment. So it's a pretty good investment. A tax deed, of course, is for all you entrepreneurial types. What happens in those states, well, what the local government will actually seize the property. Then when they seize the property, they just put it back out into the market, and they try to get whatever they can for it. So they'll start off for 10 or 20 cents on the dollar. Whatever it sells at, they accept that as the back tax payment, and you can buy properties pretty cheap that way. That happens in about 2 million properties across the United States every single year. So it's a business been around for 200 years. That's a long time.
Okay. So it is first lien on the property because it is property taxes. And it's as simple as if the owner don't pay, the government will take control and somebody will pay the taxes. So the government receives the money to operate on.
Right.
And in Florida, we happen to be one of those states that has certificates and tax deeds. Right. So that means they sell a certificate and they have an auction on the certificate, right?
Right. Case, 2 years later, they sell a certificate.
In this case, the bid goes downward. In other words, the lowest person, they're bidding on the rate, right?
What they're bidding on in tax certificates can be sold. They could bid on the amount of property you're going to get, but in Florida, what they do is a certificate will start at 18%, and the next bid would be 17.5%, and it could go all the way down to 1%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the amount is fixed. You're just bidding on the interest rate, and the lowest interest rate
right because the certificate. Right. Exactly.
Okay.
Right.
And now they have to hold that certificate for I think 2 years before they can actually force the sale of the property, right?
Right. And when they force the sale of property, the county will open the bidding up to anybody and everybody, and not just to that one person. So the bidding's opened up to the whole world at that point. And
now they're selling the house.
Whoever comes in and pays.
They're selling the property, not the payment. They're selling the property in that case, not the actual certificate.
Exactly.
Right?
So the difference,
Okay.
the easy way to remember the difference is a certificate is just a piece of paper like 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. Whereas when they sell a tax deed and not a certificate, when they sell a deed, they're actually selling the deed to the property. So you and I are used to getting a deed when we buy property.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So either one of those cases, if I buy the tax certificate, I'm going to get guaranteed whatever the minimum rate was that I bid.
Right.
When somebody takes it to a tax deed sale, because I got to get paid off first, right?
Right.
Now, if I buy the property, of course, I get whatever I get. Assumably way below market value. So, all right. So now we know what they are.
Good.
Okay.
Good.
Now
and you also have a sense for. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, now that we know what there are, how would one get involved in this thing?
It's really easy to get involved. The people that want to do it, they usually do like you and I. They get involved with someone to teach them how to do it. But if you didn't want to do that, these are always sold at the county and the municipal level. So there's 3,000 counties in the United States, round numbers, and the local county will have a list of all the tax certificates available. Now, I'm going to say some things now that are going to kind of shock people that aren't used to this. But when I say they'll have a list, the list will be so big that it would take up a complete New York Times newspaper. It could be 3 inches thick if it were Miami-Dade. It could be 40,000 certificates if it was Tampa, Florida, Hillsborough County. And even a place like Jacksonville will have on the average a low of 20,000 certificates every year and a high of 30 to 35,000 every single year. So that's right. So it's a big business. So they can buy that list or they can download it. Whatever you do, don't push the button on your computer, because if you got the list, it's going to print out, a whole ream of paper. You're going to get thousands of them. Right. So a person gets involved. They get the list, and then they learn how to. Every property in the United States has a tax number, just like you have a Social Security number. Every property has a tax. Then they can go look it up with their computer. If they don't know how to do that, we teach them how to do it. And then they can evaluate the property. Obviously, there's no sense in buying in bad neighborhoods. That's not a good idea. You want to buy the best you can buy, because with a tax certificate, if you don't get paid, you're probably going to get the property in a lot of the states. So other than Florida, where they're going to have two options, the other states, when you buy the certificate, if you don't get paid, you will get the property. It's the law in all of those states. So to get involved, it's research. It's learning how to do it. It's not a difficult business, but the difficult part is just learning, because each state and each county has its own rules.
Right. And of course, the cool part is you can do it anywhere from anywhere, and you don't have to be there to buy tax certificates.
Yeah. I mean, you can sit your kitchen table. Yeah, absolutely.
Because the government's going to pay me. I ain't got to worry about it. I don't have to inspect the property or anything like that if I'm buying tax certificates. On the other hand, though, there are ways we can get burnt, because I want to make sure we're buying a tax certificate on something that's worth something, right?
Right. So what we do with the people that you're absolutely right. The person that's good at using the computer, if they're not, we're going to teach them the basics of it. But you can research every property in the United States from I've created databases and I've created external drives. You might call it a flash drive. I have a flash drive that I can plug in sitting in your office, assuming we're online. And then I can access from your office, I can access every property in the United States. Now, if I can do that, then once I access the property, I can tell you the value of it. I can tell you the neighborhood, and everybody's familiar with those Google Street Maps and stuff. It's a much higher level now, because there's different satellites that'll actually look down from 30,000 feet and tell you, look, there's a geranium on the front porch. So you can really look at properties thoroughly that way, and you can do comparables and figure out what the value is.
Okay, so in realistic, though, if I'm just looking to buy tax certificates, Ted, they're only going to be for a very small fraction of the value of the property anyway. So I really probably just start with how much money I want to spend. It won't take me long to find a place to spend it, as long as I'm leery of the traps, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're a very practical investor, and that's exactly right what you just said. However, when I'm teaching it, I have to be a little bit more complex than that, because we want them to protect their interests if they don't know real estate. But anybody that knows real estate would just go to a subdivision and say, look, every house in the subdivision is worth $500,000. How bad off could I be? And so you're absolutely right. You'd say, I picked the Mandarin District in Jacksonville, which happens to be a very nice area. Well, in the Mandarin District, Most, yeah, I know that. We're only going to have a few bad ones. So if I buy one there, if I buy a tax certificate there, I'm not taking a big risk. That's for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so because I'm buying a certificate, sooner or later I'm going to get paid, and I'm going to get paid the amount that I bid. So I'm going to get a high rate of return on my money. So that lessens the risk tremendously. But now, of course, if I'm bidding on something at a tax sale, better probably do a little bit more homework. Agreed?
Right. You need to evaluate that property. I mean, a lot of people are into fixer-uppers and stuff like that. And if they're going to do that, then you need to, if you can't drive by it, so you don't have to, I guess I should say, first of all, you don't want to restrict yourself to just doing your neighborhood in your state. You do want to think about what's going on in Seattle, what's going on in LA, what's going on here and there. So you can, some of these tax auctions are phenomenal in the sense that you can make a lot of money. I mean, it's for entrepreneurs to buy these colonial houses in New York that are worth $300,000 or $400,000 for $50,000 is a nice deal. But you want to look at the neighborhood because as you teach, you're going to tell them, look, you can fix the house, but you can't fix the neighborhood. So if you can't go and see it and you're not satisfied with what you saw on the satellite, then there's companies that you can hire them for a couple $100 and they'll go out there and take pictures of the neighborhood and they'll take pictures of the house and give you all that. 99% of tax sales, you can't go in the house, 99%.
Right. Well, nor do you need to. You probably just need to figure out if there's a house there, right?
Right, and just you know if you're a rehabber. Well, the rehabbers know they're going to put in a kitchen, they're going to put in a bathroom, they already know that stuff. So if they get a $300,000 house for $50,000, they're going to put the 50 in. They're going to make a year's pay on one deal or more.
So anyway, it's like any other business. You've got things that you need to learn to keep from getting burnt, and you just can't go doing stupid stuff because you didn't take time to learn the ropes. But as far as investments, getting a high rate of return goes, probably one of the safest things there is because it's a first lien on the property and it's paid back by the government as far as the certificate goes, which frankly, a lot of people don't go beyond the certificates. The last thing they'd ever want would be the house. So they just leave it out there until it gets sold and they get paid their rate of return.
Well, think of all the people that you've taught to get IRAs and whether it was a Roth IRA or whatever.
Perfect.
I mean, all those, it's a perfect investment for them. So they just take their time and buy the certificates where they can earn high rates. Now, the rates are phenomenal. Here in Florida, they're 18%, but a place like Iowa pays 24%, and there's no bid down. It always is 24%. Texas pays 25%. And my favorite state is Georgia, actually, because Georgia in the first year, you get 20%. In the second year, you get 30%. In the third year, you get 40%. And in the fourth year, you get 50%. Yeah.
I did not know that.
And, Georgia's incredible. I've got people that have done 100 deals in Georgia. I have a guy from Jacksonville, I think it was probably one of your students, who goes to Georgia every month, and sometimes he does 2 or 3 of them. Yeah. Now, the beauty of Georgia is if you buy one today and they pay it off in 2 months, you still get the 20%. Yeah.
Cool.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Very nice.
But if it goes... and you can foreclose after 1 year in Georgia on a tax certificate. I always tell my students, oh my God, don't foreclose. Just let it go into the second year because you get 30% in the second year. We're going to make 30% on a real estate deal. I mean, it's unbelievable. Yeah. So all the states have them.
So how do they sell them in Georgia? Do they have auctions or how do they sell them?
Yeah, Georgia has 159 counties and they're all authorized to have an auction every month. So what they'll do is on the first Tuesday of the month, they'll have an auction in Georgia. That county will have one. Some counties they have one just every single month. And when you bid, you buy the certificate and you hold it. If the person wants to redeem it, they can do that anytime. They have to pay you a minimum of 20%. So it's really not an interest rate. Whereas, give you a comparison, Florida would have an annualized interest rate. So if you bought a certificate today and it didn't pay for 6 months, you'd get 1.5% a month. In Georgia, if you own a certificate for 1 day, you get 20%. If you own 365 days, you get 20%. So it's always so that's a penalty return. And there's a bunch of states that have penalty states. Like Texas is the same way, 25, except it's 25% in Texas. It's a penalty rate. That person always has to pay that. Nevertheless.
Well, that's pretty cool. Okay, look, I know you're the world's best at this. I know you got training on it. I think you have courses and live training, don't you?
Right. We do live training and we do courses on it. And I teach an internet class now for 8 years, every Thursday night for for 2 solid hours. It's a whole course that we teach. We teach it in 4 countries, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
So you're going to give away something here. What are you going to give away?
Well, why don't we give them a cash flow generator? This is a familiar name to you, but we have a cash flow generator that shows people how to make money right away with tax lien certificates. And then as they get through the booklet, they'll learn, it's more of a book than a booklet, but they'll then learn how to do the tax deeds, which means you're going to get the property. So it's basically the book gives you the nitty gritty of these tax lien certificates that you and I are talking about. And then for those people that are entrepreneurial that want to buy them, there's more data in the back of it, and they can read about that. So they can go to your, you have a regular website for that. So they can go there and they'll link over to us and we'll send them out a booklet.
All right. So what is that? We're at the mentorpodcast.com/TED. Is that it?
That'd be fine.
Yeah. mentorpodcast.com/TED. Take you right to all the free stuff you're giving away. And then you can also find out what stage you want to jump into Ted's training at. Michael, I've been around this guy, I don't even know, guys, at least 35 years. And I'm telling you, he's the best at what he does. And Ted, if I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, well, how can I get started in this if I don't have much money?
Oh, this is easy business to start when you don't have any money. Tax certificates will sell for pennies. I mean, but I mean, you can buy tax certificates for $50 and $100. Now, keep in mind, if you spent $100 and you got 18%, you didn't make very much. But here's the way you make the money. In these tax auctions, when the government, now let me explain Florida first, and then I'll go to other states. Florida is a benevolent state. It's really nice to the people in Florida. All right. So what happens is you don't pay your tax in Florida. They issue a tax certificate. That means you're going to stay in the house, but you will have to pay the tax ultimately. In the other states, they confiscate the property. So here's where the bidding is going to start. When they confiscate the property, they're usually going to start the bidding. The government doesn't want any more property. They're going to start that bidding at real close to the back taxes. So let's say it was California and you had a $500,000 house and it was delinquent on taxes for 5 years. They let it go in California. So now the starting bid on that property will be $30,000 or real close to that, like 1% a year plus the penalty for 5 years. So $30,000 on a $500,000 house. So that's a pretty small way to start. So that was an example. But you can buy tax certificates for $2,000 and $3,000 and $5,000. That's all they want,
or less.
Want the back taxes.
Yeah,
or less.
I mean,
absolutely.
There's every time you see a pile of tax certificates, there's going to be a pile of them on vacant land.
Absolutely.
Also a trap. Got to make sure that vacant land is worth something. But gosh, I've seen tax certificates go for less than $100. But I don't know what they were on. But anyway, in other words, I can start with about any amount of money that I could actually come up with and/or borrow, for that matter. Because probably doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure out that I can borrow money a whole lot less than 18%, and use that money to keep on growing and keep doing it.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
And as we said, perfect for IRAs. I mean, just absolutely perfect for IRAs. The risk is actually the only risk is if you screw up and do something stupid like buying a certificate on a piece of worthless property.
Well, if people don't want to just pick up the list and just, use a dart and throw it at the list, it's better to get, but like everything, if you get a little bit of education, obviously I'm selling education and I have been for 25 years, but a little bit of education goes a long way. So you don't have to spend $50,000 learning how to do it. Spend a few thousand, get yourself started, and then see if this is something that fits for you. It fits for every investor because they can use it in the IRA, as you just talked about. And then for the people that are really entrepreneurial, they can just hold off until they find that great deal. You only have to, in this business, you only have to find one great deal a year. That's it. Yep. One great one a year will do the job because you make some money.
I mean, it's so perfect for all you listeners out there that got money sitting around in the bank getting you 0.5% or so, or you got an IRA with the money just sitting in the custodian's account doing absolutely nothing. I mean, this is just such a perfect use. And that's the purpose of this podcast, is to help you make more money and safely as possible. And here's one great opportunity to do it. So anyway, go to thementorpodcast.com/TED and find out what Ted's all about. And I think you'll like this guy because, boy, does he have the testimonials. Oh, my goodness. I've never seen anybody with more testimonials than you.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Are there any parting words that you would like to share with our listeners? In fact,
well, I always tell everybody the same thing. Yeah, thank you. I learned a ton of lessons, and I learned as much by making mistakes as I ever did by doing anything else. So I think I've made all the mistakes these years. But what I suggest is just make the first step. Start learning it. You don't have to get rich by next Friday. It's a process, and once you learn the process, this business won't change and won't go up and down with the market. We just went through this terrible real estate crisis over the past decade. The tax business and lien business was exactly the same throughout the whole thing. Now we're into boom times. It's the same. It's a very stable business. It's been that way.
You know, sometimes it's hard to imagine why people don't pay their taxes, but there's a whole list of reasons. And one you didn't mention was, they actually die. And
it's a big one. It's a big one. So let me just give you I'll take a 30-second example. All right, so the guy lives in Florida. He's real hot. It's real hot in Florida in the summertime, kind of muggy for a lot of people. So sure enough, he's got to go to Michigan and buy on one of those lakes up there or something like that. He wants to be cool. So he goes there, then he comes back, and he leaves his address there, not in Florida, right? So they keep sending him a tax bill, and he doesn't pay it. He loses the house to the Michigan tax collector. Well, the same thing happens in Florida. The Michigan guy comes down here, and he forgets to pay his tax, and the houses go free. So you're absolutely right. That happens all the time in this state. All the time.
And the state's not required to hire a private investigator to track you down. They're required to send out one. Well, in some states, not even that, I think. And that's it. Right. So if they don't get to you, you're out of luck. You don't even know it happened. You might wake up one day and realize you don't own the property anymore.
Right.
So so don't make assumptions that why people do this, and quit asking why. It's just normal. And
make that first step and do something.
Yeah,
make this step.
All right. Well, any parting words you want to give our audience?
Well, I want to give one to you. Thank you, and thanks for hanging in there so long. And we're both getting a little older, so let's hope we can both keep doing this for another 5 or 10 years.
Well, you'll always be older than me, sir.
I know that, but that's okay. I'm hanging in there. So good to hear your voice. I haven't talked to you for a long time.
All right. Well, thank you for giving us the time. Thank everybody for listening, and we'll see you on the next Mentor podcast. Thanks, Ted.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
That's all for this edition of the Mentor Podcast. To connect with Ron and learn how you can attain financial freedom, as well as up-to-date strategies to grow and protect your wealth based on today's discussion, go to www.connectwiththementor.com.